Let's factor the trinomial 4 times x to the fifth power minus 28 times x to the fourth power plus 40 times x cubed. First, we'll factor out the greatest common factor, which is 4 times x cubed, since this is the largest divisor of each term. After we factor out 4 times x cubed, we have a trinomial remaining, which is x squared minus 7x plus 10. Next, we will factor the trinomial x squared minus 7x plus 10. To do this, we want to find the two integers whose product is positive 10 and whose sum is negative 7. After a little trial and error, we find the two integers are negative 5 and negative 2. Now that we know these integers, we can factor the trinomial x squared minus 7x plus 10. From our earlier work, we know this will factor as the quantity x minus 5 times the quantity x minus 2. Now we have our completely factored form to be 4 times x to the third times the quantity x minus 5 times the quantity x minus 2. Remember, when factoring, we always look for a common factor first, and remember to include the common factor as part of the answer. As a check, we can multiply the greatest common factor and the binomials to get our original polynomial. To check, we can use FOIL, F-O-I-L. First, x times x. Outside, x times negative 2. Inside, negative 5 times x. Last, negative 5 times negative 2. To multiply the binomials x minus 2 by x minus 5. After performing the FOIL method, we have x squared minus 2x minus 5x plus 10. To continue, we combine like terms to get the original trinomial x squared minus 7x plus 10. Next, we distribute the greatest common factor of 4 times x cubed, which gives us 4 times x to the fifth power, minus 28 times x to the fourth power, plus 40 times x cubed. We see our check is complete since we obtained the original polynomial.
In this problem, we are asked to factor trinomials. The factored form of a trinomial is a product of two binomials. Notice that the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. This means that the first term in each binomial factor is x, because x times x is x squared. To find the other terms of the binomial factors, look at the constant term 12 and the coefficient of the middle term 8. We need to find two numbers whose product is 12 and whose sum is 8. Let's list factor pairs of 12. 12 is 1 times 12. 12 is also 2 times 6, or 3 times 4. We need to determine which of these factor pairs has the sum 8. Let's add each of the factor pairs together to find the correct pair. 1 plus 12 equals 13, not 8. 2 plus 6 is 8, so these are the factors we want. So the factors of the trinomial are x plus 2 and x plus 6. To make sure we factored correctly, use the FOIL method to multiply the factors. Multiply the first terms of the binomials. X times x is x squared. Multiply the outer terms. X times 6 is 6x. Multiply the inner terms. 2 times x is 2x. And multiply the last terms. 2 times 6 is 12. Now combine the like terms. 6x plus 2x is 8x. The result is the original trinomial, so we factored correctly. Let's try part B. The coefficient of the x squared term is 1, so the first term in each binomial factor is x. Now look at the constant term, 18, and the coefficient of the middle term, negative 11. This problem is different from part A because we need to find two numbers whose product is positive 18 and whose sum is negative 11. Recall that the product of two negative numbers is positive, and the sum of two negative numbers is negative. To have a positive product and a negative sum, both numbers have to be negative. Let's list negative factor pairs of 18 and check the sums. Negative 1 times negative 18 is positive 18, but the sum is negative 19, not negative 11. Let's try another pair. How about negative 2 and negative 9? Negative 2 times negative 9 is positive 18. Negative 2 plus negative 9 is negative 11, which is what we want. So these are the other terms in the binomial factors. Let's write them in the parentheses. Again, let's use the FOIL method to check our factoring. Multiply the first terms of the binomials. X times x is x squared. Multiply the outer terms. X times negative 9 is negative 9x. Multiply the inner terms. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And multiply the last terms. Negative 2 times negative 9 is positive 18. Now combine the like terms. Negative 9x plus negative 2x is negative 11x. The result is the original trinomial, so we factored correctly. The trinomial x squared minus 11x plus 18 is equal to x minus 2 times x minus 9. Let's try one more. A squared minus 5a minus 24. The coefficient of the a squared term is 1, so the first term in each binomial factor is a. Now look at the constant term, negative 24, and the coefficient of the middle term, negative 5. This problem is different from parts A and B because we need to find two numbers whose product is negative 24 and whose sum is negative 5. Recall that the product of two numbers with different signs is a negative number, and the sum of two numbers with different signs has the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. To get a negative sum, the number with the greater absolute value must be negative. Let's look at factors of negative 24. 2 times 12 is 24. Since 12 is greater than 2, we want the factors 2 and negative 12. 2 times negative 12 is negative 24, but 2 plus negative 12 is negative 10, not negative 5. Let's try another pair of factors, negative 8 and 3. Negative 8 times positive 3 is negative 24, and negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. This is what we want, so write these numbers in the parentheses with the a's. Note that since multiplication is commutative, it doesn't matter which number we write in the factors as long as we keep the correct sign with each number. Now let's check by applying the FOIL method to these binomials. Multiply the first terms of the binomials. A times A is A squared. Multiply the outer terms. A times positive 3 is positive 3A. Multiply the inner terms. Negative 8 times A is negative 8A. And multiply the last terms. Negative 8 times positive 3 is negative 24. Now combine the like terms. 3A plus negative 8A is negative 5A. The result is the original trinomial, so we factored correctly. The binomial factors of A squared minus 5A minus 24 are A minus 8 and A plus 3. We want to factor 4x squared minus 8x minus 140. Before factoring a trinomial, always check the terms for common factor. Notice that 4, 8, and 140 are each divisible by 4. So we'll factor the 4 out first. Let's write each term as a product with 4. 4x squared becomes 4 times x squared. 8x becomes 4 times 2x. And 140 becomes 4 times 35. When we factor, we get 4 times the quantity x squared minus 2x minus 35. Now we're back to factoring a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c. In this case, b is negative 2 and c is negative 35. So let's set up our parentheses. Don't forget the factor 4. For the first terms, we have to have x and x to get x squared. Now we need two numbers whose product is negative 35 and whose sum is negative 2. Well, we know that 7 times 5 is 35 and 7 minus 5 is 2. To get a negative product, we want one of the factors to be negative. To get a negative sum, we want the greater number, 7, to be negative. That means the factors we want are negative 7 and positive 5. So the factored trinomial is 4 times x minus 7 times x plus 5.